What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Funnel Vision Show, where we work with marketers, marketing leaders, executive coaches, agency coaches. We really help marketers level up their game. And today's episode is no exception, because today we are going to talk about this really cool psychometric assessment that marketers can use to better understand their customers, their team, build their team so that they can really take advantage and level up their game. And today I have Stephanie Kelly, who is the head of product. She is the chief product officer for Styles. She's an executive coach, and I'm very excited to dive into this. I just took my own assessment, so she's probably going to psychoanalyze me throughout this episode, which is going to be a lot of fun. Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to dive into this, especially because you're going to get to talk about me and some of these things that we've gone through. But for those who don't know, tell everybody your kind of highlights. Why should people listen to this? Your humble or not so humble bragging rights.
I spent the first 15 years of my career in marketing and communications, and I moved into coaching 6 years ago or so. And really the through line is both sides are looking at behavioral analytics. What button do you need to push to get people to do either what they want to do or what you want them to do? Having moved into marketing, I was looking at scaling brands into 6-7 figures. I helped charities double their revenue. As a coach, I've helped my clients 500 times their revenue and really just figure out how they can balance their ambition with their humanity without having to give up either one.
Okay, so you went through this, you started off as a marketer and then you became a coach. Tell me about the journey itself, right? So how did this transition occur? Walk us through a little bit of the timeline here.
So 15 years in, I'd spent a long time at boutique agencies, then worked in the entertainment industry, and I loved it. I moved into the crisis comm space, and I think I had one too many cover up this weird thing that the CEO did with the intern scenarios and realized it just wasn't aligning. Yeah. It wasn't aligning as well as I'd hoped it would. And I had my own sort of dark night of the soul, as we all do. I was diagnosed with this crazy chronic illness where like all of the organs in my pelvis had fused together. So I spent, 2 years in bed thinking, where do I want to be and who do I want to be and what do I want to be out in the world? And I love people and I'm fascinated by why people are in fact so people-y. And so this kind of seemed like the next iteration. I've been in boardrooms with these brilliant humans in these huge global brands, and they're saying the same things that my girlfriends and I would say when we were having cocktails. I can't do what I really want to do because of this, or if I only had the time, or if I only had the resources. And if the big global brand people can't do it, how is everyone else supposed to? So I set my way into figuring out how we all get to do the things that we want to do.
Interesting. And throughout that process, you landed at Courage and you became an executive coach. And how did you get to the stage of being the chief product officer of Styles, which is the assessment that we're going to dive a little bit deeper into?
Honestly, I'd love to say it was a deeply strategic plan. It was one of those sort of synergistic moments where I knew somebody at Courage and they said, just take the Styles assessment. It's rude. You're going to love it. I was like, okay. And so I took it and I read the report, and we talk about the 5 stages of grief with your report. The first being like, you don't know me. I'm not like that. And then you sit with it a minute and go, oh God, I do all of those things and I should probably look at that. And I really loved the material and saw so many ways that it could be used. And so I came on board as a consultant just to help a little bit because I was passionate about the work. And then the next thing, I was sitting in with the executive team, looking at strategy, looking at their marketing. And over the course of a couple of years, here I am looking at product, because the beautiful thing about Styles for me anyway, is that the applications are so broad. And coming from a marketing background, I just sit and I look at it and see all of these streams that it can be applied to. And I'm deeply excited and privileged to get to move it into those streams as time goes on.
Let's unveil what it is, right? Let's talk about what Styles is and what the assessment is designed to help people who take it and read about it themselves, but then also if you are able to read about it for somebody else, what is it meant to do? Because there's a lot of these assessments out there, Myers-Briggs, et cetera. So where's Styles fit and why is it different?
I think the best description of styles and what makes it different is that styles looks at your biology. So we're not looking at your personality. We're not looking at necessarily your likes and your dislikes. We're looking at what your system is going to do under pressure. So we're all under pressure. Animals, you've got that fight or flight instinct. You feel the pressure. Your body does what it's supposed to do. For humans, we're the only animal that gets an email and it kicks off our fight or flight defenses. And all of a sudden, your body's interpreting a cranky client as a shark that's swimming after you. There's all of these behaviors and all of these thought processes that come with that impact your leadership, your communication style, how you think, how you feel. Styles really tells you how you are going to manage under pressure and what you can do to help be a little bit more aware and maybe move some of those behaviors so that you have more control.
Okay. And there's four outcomes to the assessment. For style. Oh, look at that. Four styles. Okay. So walk me through them. What are they? And you told me that I'm one of those. So let's dive into each of them and let's go from there.
Let's get into it. Okay. So you've got four styles. You have control, influence, power, and authority. Most people, when they hear those names, get a bit triggered and have a reaction that is deeply intentional. All of this is meant to provoke something within you and make you have a response. Anytime you notice something like that, any big 8 out of 10 feeling, hang on to it. It's something to pay attention to. So controls are visionaries. These are big picture strategy, 3 to 5 years in the future. You've got influence. They are looking at right now. These are your social butterflies, your relationship people. You've got powers, get it done. They are your builders and they are looking at the next quarter, the next 90 days. What do we need to do to move from here to there in this next chunk? And then you have authorities. Authorities are data driven, analytical, and they are looking to the past to make sense of the future.
Interesting. Okay. So I am a control, apparently.
Indeed, you are. So you're going to get a score in each of the four categories. And most of us embody most of the styles. Most people have a style or a score within every single style. So you're going to see aspects of these within yourself all over the place. It is all useful. It is all good data. But you're going to have a primary. For you, that's control. And every single style has a primary concern. So with controls, you are looking at a concern for looking competent and people in the room really believing that you know what you're talking about, for you to feel that pressure and to get threatened. If you have to walk in and say, I don't know, or you're messing up a presentation in front of people, that is the worst thing that is going to happen to you, certainly the most triggering. The time frame is really important for each of the styles because it's something that on a team can really impact how you're talking to people, right? If I'm saying to you, I'm here to do this really big brainstorm, I want to look at the next 5 years and strategize, you are going to be energized by that. But if you've got a power at the table, they're going to start poking holes in it. But we don't have the finances to do that. We don't have the software. We don't have the manpower. If you're presenting your great idea, you may take that as someone poking holes in what you think, which as a control can be very triggering. You're probably not going to look kindly upon it, but they are just looking at their natural time frame and expressing what happens for them. So you can see how there might be a clash between those two styles without that awareness. Let me ask you this. Do you think, so we have what we call the 50-50s, okay? Do you think you are more a starter or a finisher?
Starter.
Perfect. So that is a standard control answer. As a starter, you're going to be better at beginning a project, having a great idea, but it's going to take you more energy and more effort to move it over the finish line. As you allocate your days and your schedule, knowing that is what is going to take the most out of you, you're going to want to put those tasks early in the week and early in the morning. Because if we ask you to do it at 4 o'clock, that last task to bring it over the line, it's probably not going to get done until Monday because it's the last thing you want to do. How about creating or preserving? Do you want to make something new or do you want to protect what you already have?
Create.
Also a standard control answer. These are really important for you to understand. Again, it's very energy focused. So what is going to drain you? What is going to fill your batteries? The other 50-50s are thought or action. So which one do you think you move to first?
Thinking. Thought.
Yeah. So knowing that when it comes down to brass tacks and doing that building, moving things forward, more energy. And then in trust, there are two components, either competence or sincerity. We all need both, but each style has one that they need first when they meet someone. What would you say is most important to you if we went to a meeting? For me to ask you how your weekend was, or for me to really show you that I know what I'm talking about?
Competence.
Competence, always for a control. I'm an influence, and what's most important to me off the hop is sincerity. I want to know that you are a live, warm human and that I want to do business with you, that you are someone that is going to have shared values with me. Do those things track for you so far?
They do, yeah. What I'd love to get a sense of is it's one thing to be self-aware of these things. So I go through this and a lot of times that's what happens is you go through these assessments and you start to learn about yourself, which is great because now you're a little bit more self-aware. What it doesn't help you do is to know, is my colleague or is my business partner or is my customer that I'm about to get into a room with this or that? And so how do you, putting your marketing hat on, how do you like use this to basically become a better marketer?
There are so many ways depending on your industry, but what you get is something called, we call it the placemat. So it's this very large chart that will tell you all of these many things about all of the different types. So you're going to get things like what's their time frame? What's their primary business concern? What's their biggest blind spot? What happens to them under pressure? What do you send them in an email that is going to make them confident that they want to do business with you? These seem maybe small things, but when you're in a busy marketplace and you're arguing over market share, understanding how to position your pitch and what your client needs is an enormous advantage. Those pain points, those trigger words, even if you're in a pitch and you start to see that pressure and you go, okay, I'm willing to bet that you're in control and I'm starting to see these behaviors within you, that means I've pushed too hard and I need to pull back. With this system, you're going to understand what is the reassurance that your client needs so that you aren't pushing them too far. What is the verbiage that is going to motivate them the most? And that can be used both on a B2B level or a B2C level.
So how would you, in a sense, assess someone or have your best guess as to the style that somebody is without them actually telling you what style they are or them doing the quiz and filling it out? So I come into a room, you already had your assumptions as to what I was, and that's because you've done it many times. From my standpoint, if I wanted to go into a room and I see a client and I'm like, I really want to sell them on our software, how would I best approach that in order for me to grasp, okay, this person's actually an influencer, this is an authority, or they're this, right? How would you go about that?
There are a couple of different ways. So a control, a good number of the times they'll take the head seat at the table. They are going to take that captain's chair. An influence is going to be chatting with people, making sure that everybody is involved, making introductions, facilitating. So that's an easy way there. Looking at those 50-50s, right? So are they more concerned with creating or preserving as you're chatting with them? Do they see more competence or sincerity based? That's going to help you go, okay, are you more likely to be a control or an influence? The other thing is even things like how are your emails positioned? If you have sent me 47 attachments and 5 background docs that are each 100 pages, I will bet any amount of money that you are an influence an authority every single time because you want the data. If I've sent you a bunch of documents and you have not read them and you come screaming into a meeting with all of them printed off and you're actively reading them as you're walking into the room, I'm going to bet you're a power. Learning these really few key traits of each of these 4 styles lets you understand quickly where might you be, how do I develop trust? Even on Zoom, do you have family photos behind you? Do you have a picture of your dog? Okay, you're probably an influencer of power. Do you have your credentials displayed? Do you have your brand logo behind you? You're probably a control, maybe an authority. Styles is the other there are so many psychometrics and they all have really great pieces, but the problem with most of them is they're really complicated. It's like 400 acronyms that are 5 miles long and you are never conversationally going to be able to remember that thing you're supposed to say when this trigger happens in a meeting. With styles, it is stuff you already know about people, but just maybe categorized a bit differently with language that you use every day. So it's easy to bring it into a boardroom or into a meeting without having to dig out your binder and look up what you were supposed to be saying.
Yeah, I think what there's a couple things that you just mentioned that makes it very exciting and useful without overwhelm, right? Because yeah, I don't know if on a INTJ or JFJ, I don't all those acronyms, I don't know what it means. A and B, I forget what they are, and I couldn't tell you what you are. But the fact that there's just these small little triggers that you can look for to understand how is this person going to approach this conversation, or how should I rethink how I approach this conversation in order to better balance that thought. So you being an influence, you and knowing that you're that social person that you like to have these conversations, just having this conversation with you, I know 100% my wife is an influence. Like she doesn't even have to do the test. She is 100% an influence, right? Meanwhile, I have this Steve Jobs quote that talks about vision, and I don't even remember what it says, but the ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones that do. Yeah, that makes sense that I'm a control because I'm thinking that much further into the future and all of that stuff. So very interesting and fascinating, especially if you're an agency owner or you're just an entrepreneur or you're a marketing leader and you have to deal with a lot of colleagues. I think it's very important to understand your yin and yang in a sense, right? So I'm a control. It probably doesn't make sense for me to partner with a control as well to try to get something done because nothing will get done, right? It's much better for me to go with let's say a power who's thinking 3 months down the road or somebody else, right? From that standpoint. So interesting.
It is it's such an interesting thing because a control and a power are naturally a really excellent combination. You are going to start and you're going to finish. The problem is without awareness, you're also both going to drive each other totally insane. So if you don't have the understanding that you genuinely are just seeing the world through two different lenses that are really complementary, the friction will feel really difficult. But if you understand that friction is actually moving you forward, if you approach it differently, it doesn't cause relational damage. With controls, and I deeply apologize for the rudeness of styles, but we all have something that we need to work on. So like for influences, we need to work on follow through. We're really great at starting. Excellent starters, not so great on the finishing, not so great on the stopping talking to the client to make the sale. For controls, it's employing empathy. When you are under pressure, you may find that you get so focused on crossing the finish line and making the sale happen, signing that contract, that you forget the relational impacts of moving it forward. With awareness, yeah, with awareness, if you've got a power by your side and you find that you've maybe bulldozed them a little bit because you got excited, you now know enough to say after that meeting, hey, thanks for getting that done. I just want you to know I noticed that I might have talked over you a little bit. Sorry about that. And that's enough. That's all you need to do is acknowledge, move forward together. And that awareness helps you do it.
Yeah, I think a lot of times as marketers, we look at numbers, we look at conversion rates, we look at clicks, we look at views, we look at all of the traffic that we get, how much money did we spend. We look at these things in a very marketer lens, but what you really need to keep in mind all the time is it's another person at the end of the day on the other side. And it's great to understand their pains and their problems and their desires and all that stuff in relation to, your offer or your business. But at the end of the day, this is an actual person who has a specific personality. And if you can't gravitate or understand that personality, then it doesn't matter. If I'm going to sell you if you're an influence or let's say a power, and you really think in 3 to 6 month increments, and I'm trying to sell you on this thing that could change your life in 5 years from now, you're probably sitting there and be like, I don't care, right? And I'm not going to buy from you. But if I can reframe that to be like, here's how this is going to actually impact you in the next 3 months, now all of a sudden that makes a big difference.
marketer to marketer, just imagine having this data, right? Okay, so I know in all of the segments of all of the people that have taken this test, I can say, I'm going to market to you like this, with this time frame, with these pain points, in these colors, with this vibe, with this reassurance. I know that you need to know that everything is going to be okay. That is your primary concern, is that reassurance. I can now gear my product, my ad sets to you. And then you can see, my favorite thing is looking at of all, so I'm targeting to each style, and then I'm looking at my analytics and I'm going, okay, so which style interacts more on which social network? Which style is more likely to comment? Which style is more likely to like a post? Who's more likely to follow us? Who's more likely to convert on an ad on LinkedIn? And it is fascinating to watch each of the different styles and how they behave online, and how uncomfortably predictable we all are when we're broken out this way, because it is consistent across the board and it's just fascinating.
My assumption is controls never comment and never do much. They don't like it. They don't care about it. It's not relevant to them.
You stingy commenters, but you also conversely get really upset when people don't comment. That's what I see out there in the world, is controls. When they put content out, they are watching their own analytics very carefully, but they tend not to be publicly facing, liking, sharing, commenting.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. To me, this has been a fascinating conversation. I learned more about myself in this, but I also gotten a lot of aha moments as to how I can approach various other conversations as well with clients and with the team. And as I grow, where can people learn more about styles, about you, Stephanie, in general?
You can find us at stylesbycourage.com, KERAGE, and we're on every social network at Styles by Courage.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing this. This has been super insightful and very helpful.
Oh, thanks for having me. It was fun.